All right. Hi, guys. Good afternoon. My name is Perla Cerrone. I am a double gold two-time ITAN card holder, and we're going to be talking about booking from start to finish. So, what you do the moment that you have that initial inquiry, all the way up until you are receiving and process or applying that deposit or final payment, all the way to your clients are about to travel, while they're traveling, once they come back from traveling. Okay. So I was just talking with everybody that's here really quickly and just letting them know that a lot of the stuff I'm going to discuss is my process of what I do. I've been doing this now for 2.5 years and it has evolved over that time. Okay. So if for whatever reason there's something that you hear that's like, I don't really like that, or I do something different, that's fine. This is really just to give you a nice foundation, different tips and tricks on how to better maybe have a better conversation with the client, or how to better organize yourself, or how to follow up better with the client after they travel. So hopefully you learn something from today's training. And hopefully you can gain something valuable from this. So I am going to also share with you different links and different platforms that I use as well. Okay. So step one, very first thing, right? So someone mentioned in the chat that they had someone reach out to them via email yesterday, right? So what's the very first step that you're going to do when someone reaches out to you? You're going to want to figure out, okay, what is all this, what is all the travel info, right? So you're going to want to gather all that travel information from your client. And the best way for you to do that is either over the phone or via like an inquiry form if you have one. However, the reason I put phone first is because that's going to be the I guess I should say maybe like gold standard, right? You really want to develop and create that relationship with your client so that way they can trust you, right? Especially there's a lot of us that we work with people that we have no idea who they are, right? And they find us online or they find us on Google. And we want to make sure that they feel comfortable working with us, right? Because we don't want them to think that we're a scam or that we're fraudulent, right? So put yourself in that shoe, right? Put yourself in the shoes of someone that's looking to um, purchase something online or maybe get a service online. You want to speak with them. You don't want to be texting them or, oh, hey, fill out my form and just throw it to them, right? You want to build that relationship. That's what's going to get them to come back. Okay. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to set up a time to discuss the travel plans and your services. Okay. So I'm going to open up another tab here and hopefully it comes up for me um, right away. Okay, so this is my inquiry form that I have for clients. Okay, now this inquiry form is across all of my social media platforms. All right, so anybody can go on to my social media, they can find this link, and they can fill it out. Right, so this is what it's going to look like if someone were to click on this. And this is the information that it's asking them. Okay. So you see, I'm asking for email, full name, phone number. Why? Because I want to contact them. I want to be able to reach them appropriately. What do they, what are they looking for this particular trip? Vacation home, all-inclusive cruise, sporting event, concert, things like that. How many travelers? And now we're splitting down the travelers into adults versus children, and then the ages of those children at the time of travel. Okay. Number of hotel rooms. If maybe they have a large family, maybe they need to split it into 2 rooms. Types of accommodations, reason for travel. So you see how I'm literally trying to gather all this information. Okay. Destination, departure info, if they are needing a flight, but if they don't need a flight, they can just put NA. Their desired travel dates, if they're flexible on those dates, how many nights they're looking to go, if for whatever reason they were flexible on the dates they provided above, what the desired budget is per person, car rental, travel insurance, and you see how I elaborate a little bit on the travel insurance. I'm not just asking, hey, do you want travel insurance? Yes or no, right? Because a lot of people have a huge misconception on what travel insurance is and what it covers. It's not only going to cover them in the event that they're not able to go on their trip, it's going to cover them in the event of anything during, right? So here, emergency medical risks and expenses, delayed baggage, unconventional risk, a delay, right? So anything during that trip that was just not planned, unforeseen, right? Depending on the package that or the coverage that they have, they can then receive some sort of reimbursement or have some sort of coverage. Transfers from the hotel, anything special they wanted to add. And I do always ask who referred them or how did they find me? Okay, because I want to know. I want to know, did I do something right? Am I, did they find me on social media? Did maybe a previous client refer me? And then I have a little blurb here. Okay. So my process in this is if someone were to go to my social media, they're going to find this form, right? They can fill this out. However, if someone calls me and they're like, "Hey Perla, I'm looking to plan a trip." Okay, cool. Let's get some information, right? So what I'm going to do is with Sally, that's who is our traveler today. I'll say, "Okay, Sally, perfect. Let's get some information from you." Right? I just have some very basic questions just to have a better understanding of your travel plans. And that way we'll discuss that a little bit and then I'll go into what my services include and then the next steps moving forward. That's literally my script every single time. And they're like, okay, perfect, right? So what I do is if Sally calls me, I will immediately pull up. Yes. Okay, close the door, please. Thank you. Sorry, if Sally calls me, I will immediately pull up this form and I'll say, okay, Sally, let's go over this information. And as Sally is talking and telling me her email, her full name, so I'm the one that's in control of the conversation. I'll say, okay, can I have the best email for you? And then what's your full name, Sally? And the best phone number, right? And then I will literally use this as my guide. Although I have all my questions already memorized, this is going to allow me to then have it saved. Okay, so if I pull up um my form like as if I am going to edit this form. I'll show you how you can then see your responses. Um I'm not going to click on it, but you see here where it says 71 responses. If I were to click on this, now it's going to allow me to view each and every single one of my clients' individual responses on this form. Okay. So it's more so for me, right? So I'm not going to tell Sally, okay, Sally, I have a form. I'm going to send it to you. And then I'm just emailing it to her because what is that? I'm not really building a relationship with Sally. And I want to get to know Sally because this is going to open up a conversation. I can ask her, hey, Sally, have you ever worked with a travel agent before? Things like that. So once I fill out all this information from Sally, I go down to the bottom and literally, guys, I'll share this link with you guys if you want to use this as a guide and just please make it your own. Okay. I use this little blurb and I'll literally read word for word from it. Um, and I'll make it my own. Every single time I have a conversation with a client, I may do a different variation, but pretty much that's really what I say. And then I let them know, I let Sally know, these are my services, blah, blah, blah. And for that reason, I do have a non-refundable planning fee. That's just me, right? So just like I said when we first started this training, if you do things differently, if you do not have a planning fee, that's perfectly fine. You don't need to do that. I'm just giving you my process, okay? And at that point is when I present the planning fee to Sally. After I have gathered the information, after I have built and spoken to her and had a relation, built a little bit of being relatable to her, right? And I'm not just a robot gathering information from her. I let her know what my services include, what she can expect from me, what I expect from her, right? Really making her feel good and confident about wanting to work with me, right? So once I tell Sally, okay, yes, considering all of that, I do have a non-refundable planning fee, blah, blah, blah. Okay, perfect. Let's get started. And then we go from there. Okay. So that's just a little, that's like the first part, right? So questions to ask in addition to what I just showed you guys, these are things that you can ask what's on the screen right now. These are things that you can ask while you're on the phone with Sally. So if she tells you or like Sally tells me, yeah, like I really want to go on an all-inclusive. Um, I'm going to be traveling with two couples, so six adults, her and her husband and two other couples. Okay, cool. So I would say, all right, Sally, so what kind of vibe are you looking for? Are you looking for like an all-inclusive, or I'm sorry, not all-inclusive, adults only? Are you looking for like family friendly, blah, blah, blah? And she's like, you know what? I've never been to an adults only, right? So that right there is going to narrow down your search even more, and it's going to help you because then you know you can filter your search to only show adults only. You're not going to present her with a family friendly option that's going to have children running around, right? If there's any children that would be traveling, then you would confirm the ages of the children at the time of travel. Okay. Airline preference, if they prefer nonstop versus a layover. Usually nonstop flights are obviously the preferred. They sometimes tend to be more expensive depending on the destination, but that's not always the case. Okay. Review the budget, right? So like, let's say Sally tells me she has six couples, or I'm sorry, three couples, so six adults, and they're trying to go for a week-long stay to Aruba, round trip flights, nonstop, adults only, all-inclusive resort for $1,000 each. I'm gonna say, Sally, let's just review that a little bit, you know? Um, we can definitely get your flights within that price point, definitely under the $1,000. But the all-inclusive 7-night stay, adults only in Aruba, we're going to have to increase that a little bit. So now if Sally says, well, that's my hard budget, like $1,000 per person. All right, well, then let's reevaluate what it is that you're wanting to do. Let's switch up the travel plans to then try to accommodate that budget, okay, if possible. You're going to then want to confirm that they have a passport if they're traveling internationally, and then its validity. So making sure that the passport does not expire within 6 months of travel. Okay. And then it's okay to ask for a copy of the passport. The reason it's it's going to be more convenient for you, and the reason I say this is because you asking for a copy of the passport, it's going to give you all the information that you need. Their full name as it is on their ID, their uh, date of birth, and that's what you need, right? Is to reserve a room. Now, the reason I say this is because let's say you find a hotel or a room for Sally and her two other couples, that's perfect. And you can do a book now, pay later option to lock in that price. You're going to need to have somebody's name on there. You're going to need to have one of the travelers' names on there. So then by you requesting like a copy of their passport, that allows you to do that. And then you can say, and then let's say for whatever reason, you're not able to get in contact with Sally today, and you can say, hey, Sally, so yesterday I was able to actually reserve this resort for you. Your payment is not actually due until 3 days from now. But these are your options. You know what I mean? So it makes it a little bit more convenient in that sense. So, after you have already gathered all that information, right? This is where the research happens. Now, based on the consultation with your client, you'll be able to determine which vendor you're going to want to start off with. So, for example, if Sally, like I said, Sally wants to go to Aruba, all-inclusive stay, adults only. All right, so most likely we're going to be bundling things together, which we could do Vax, we could do Pleasant Holidays, we could do Expedia Tap, right? Those are the ones that come to mind, right? But then you can also use the wholesale vendors. You can use Evil Plus, you can use Evil Rewards, you can use what's that other one? That's wholesale. TBO Holidays, you can use Downtown Travel, right? So there's a bunch of other vendors. And I definitely want to just include, because I do see this question a lot. The question is, what is the best vendor to use for Sally's trip, right? Just to continue with Sally. There isn't going to be a best vendor. There's not going to be like an end all be all vendor. The reason I say that is because each vendor is going to have different availability, different pricing, right? Let's say Sally increased her budget to $4,000 per person, And let's say I go to Expedia Tap and Expedia Tap is showing me $6,000 per person. Okay, well, Expedia Tap is out. Expedia Tap is not giving me what I'm able to offer my client in the price point that she's looking for. You know what I mean? So if you ask someone, someone may say, oh, Expedia Tap is the best, right? I always go to Expedia Tap. So you go based off of their advice or their opinion, and then you're deterred, right? Because you're like, well, this sucks. Like, I'm not getting the stuff that I need for Sally. Because for that agent's particular situation, all the times that they have used Expedia Tap, it has provided them with what they need. You see where I'm going? So like you have to you have to really take the information that your client gave you and do the research. That's our responsibility. That's your responsibility as a travel agent to research. You're not, sometimes does it happen where you go to the first vendor and the very first vendor that you go to gives you an amazing quote? Absolutely. But it doesn't always happen that way. And it's in your best interest, not only for you, but also for your client to look at multiple vendors, right? Because you may find good pricing within their budget on Vax, but then if you go to Expedia Tap, it may give you even better pricing, right? And also what's going to vary is the deposit amount. You know, each vendor is going to give you a different deposit amount depending on the total price package, depending on if the travel insurance is included, things like that. Okay. So you can send then your quote or proposal, whichever word you want to use, however you want to. Okay. Travefy is a platform I have used before. I currently use Traveljoy. It is a paid, like a monthly subscription. I believe it's like $30 a month. You can do a PDF. You can go on Canva and create an itinerary on Canva for free. Same thing with the PDF. You can also do an email with pictures. When I first started, I did an email with pictures. I would go on Google Docs and I would create like a little blurb and do like a little intro to the itinerary and include some photos of the resort options. So resort option number one, this is what it's about. Resort option number two, this is what it's about with some photos, some suggested or recommended activities, things like that. Okay. So, like I said, you just want to find what works best for you. Okay. And just remember that this is your business and make it professional. Have your logo on there, your business name should be shown. And then ask yourself if you received this from a travel agent, would you want to book with them? You want to make it presentable, make it fun, make it exciting and inviting, and make them excited to want to go to Aruba, right? So that way they can just, they're like, oh my gosh, this is the best package ever. I need to book this. Okay. So kind of like I mentioned a little bit ago, you can either book it or hold it. So depending on the vendor that you're using, you may be able to hold the reservation with a book now, pay later option. So the very few vendors that I thought of that offer this, and I'm sure that there's more, and I'm sorry if I missed them, but the ones that I thought of that I've used in the past have been Beds Online, RoomRes, Viator, Vax, Cruising Power, and Norwegian. But of course, book now, pay later has its own little terms, right? You can't book now, pay later, and they're leaving next week. You can't book now, pay later, and they're leaving next month. You can book now, pay later if they're leaving next year. Maybe, I don't know, December might be a little too close. January, February, March. No, each vendor is going to have its own period of time that will allow you to book now, pay later. Okay. The book now, pay later will tell you if there's any deposit that's due at that moment. On Vax, for example, I have seen it like a penny is due, and I have reserved it for a penny for my client. I have just put my card information and put a penny on my card. And then within the 3 days, made sure to cancel the reservation if they did not want that or switch over to their payment card. Or there's some places or some vendors that will allow you to just book now and pay later with nothing down, right? So Beds Online, RoomRes, Viator, Cruising Power, Norwegian, those all have um, opportunities for you to reserve something today and hold it until that deposit is due. Okay. But make sure that you are reading on when that deposit is actually due. Okay. No, Kelly, you would not need a credit card upfront, even for the book now, pay later. The only time I have seen that has been for Vax, to be honest. I use book now, pay later all the time, for my own travel and also for clients as well. If I'm trying to get them in a good, if I'm finding like a good deal, you just need like name. It's the only one I saw that was on Vax. And like I said, I put my, contact information, like my credit card. I paid the penny to reserve it. And then within the 3 days, they ended up not going with that option. So I canceled it and then I got refunded the penny. So all the other ones, though, I have not needed to put in a credit card information. So deposit versus a full payment. So this is something you can offer your client if the vendor allows for a deposit, of course. So this is something that I always offer clients, if they are, especially if they're planning ahead of time. This is why I always kind of preach to people, like, plan as soon as you know you want to travel, right? Because this is going to allow you to put a low deposit down and make payments. And then it's not going to be such a huge financial hit for you, you know? And then from there, you can then create and customize and do some flexible payment options and coordinate those payment plans. So payment plans, that's going to be dependent on, like, let's say, for example, let me pull out my calculator. Let's say Sally books this trip with me, right? And her total trip is $3,000. And Sally is not leaving until March of next year. Okay, so July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March. Okay, that's 9 months from now. Typically, final payment is due like 45, 60 days in advance, depending on the vendor. Okay. So let's say the deposit for Sally was $200. So 3,000 minus 200, 2,800. So you can then offer Sally a monthly payment plan. Hey, the remaining 28, the remaining $2,800, we can pay it off, and you can say 7 months, right? Give like a little extra time. So then just divide that by 7, it'd be $400 a month. Okay, you could do it that way. You can present it to Sally, right? Sally's the one that's in control here. Or Sally can say, or you can then offer Sally, or you can then just let me know when you're ready to make payments, and we make those payments. What I would recommend you to do is make sure that whatever the final due date is, so let's say she's traveling in March and the final due date is uh January 30th, you're not giving her January 30th as the final payment date. Because you don't want like credit card to like not go through that day. You don't want any delays in reaching Sally that day. So typically I will give a few days before, and Sally doesn't need to know that. Sally doesn't need to know that the final payment is due actually January 30th, and I'm telling her January 25th. I will just tell her January 25th is the final payment date. And then go from there. I'm just saying that based on experience. I have had a client, and this was actually my very first booking that I did as a new agent 2.5 years ago. And of course, it was a super complicated London trip with like 8+ people. And the final payment date, I know it was due in February because they were traveling in April. And I literally told her the exact payment date on when it was due. And I got an email from Vax saying that the credit card was declined, the credit card did not go through, and I only had a few hours to try to reach my client to then put the payment. I was freaking out. So to save yourself that panic and that anxiety, just give them a few days before. Okay. And again, you're only going to be able to do this if you check with the vendor, right? The vendor is going to tell you at the checkout, deposit when it's due, and then final payment when it's due. Okay. Client information. So this is like, for example, when you're already at the checkout screen, you're going to be plugging in all their information, names, date of birth, address, the children's info. So this is where you would already have that information if you captured their passport during the consultation. Okay. So at that point, once you have all of that client's information, Sally decides she wants to book with you, and you are finalizing a package for Sally, then you're at the checkout, you're applying the payment. You definitely want to make sure you prior to this as well, once she approves the quote or whatever proposal you send to her, that you get that signed credit card authorization form that she's authorizing you to charge her card for $3,000, whatever it was. And then you finalize that payment with all of Sally's info. Okay. Remember, this is just a little bit of a tip when you're doing a booking. Just have your email as the contact information for in terms of confirmation to be sent. All travel documents, all travel updates, all that stuff is going to go directly to you rather than Sally. So that way, in the event that there's a change in the hotel, there's a flight delay or something, or like a flight change or schedule change or something like that, you're notified and not Sally. And then Sally can then just think, oh, my trip is perfect, blah, blah, blah. And in the background, you're troubleshooting anything that comes up that might be different than what you originally proposed to her. Okay. So now let's fast forward to, we booked Sally's Aruba trip. Okay. So now let's say we are in March getting ready for Sally to go to Aruba. So what you're going to want to do is confirm the reservation, reach out to the hotel. Okay. Don't just book this trip and then just forget about it. Don't just book this trip for a client and then just forget to write it down on your calendar, not keep track of when your clients are traveling. That's not really good service or good practice to have. You want to stay on top of when your clients are traveling. So that way you can be, you are available to then handle any issues that may come up. If their flight gets delayed, if their flight gets canceled, bad weather, something like that. Okay. So reach out to the hotel. Usually I say like a week or so prior to their check-in, or maybe a few days, right? Especially if you have and you are including some hotel requests. Hotel requests could be like, I want to make sure they have 2 beds. I want to make sure they have a king bed. I want to make sure you can accommodate an early check-in or a late check-in. Those are hotel requests that are all going to be dependent on hotel availability. Okay, so even though, just remember, you're putting in this request into the booking, it's not ever guaranteed. Just make sure you let your client know that, okay? I have made that mistake as a new agent as well, putting in a request and not letting my client know that it's not guaranteed. And they get upset, because they think that it's going to be guaranteed, okay? So reach out to the hotel, confirm the reservation, include any requests that, kind of confirming that they have those requests, include any complimentary amenities that you wanted to have added on. So typically I'll always ask like, hey, can we do a complimentary amenity? Can we maybe upgrade their room? Can we get like wine or chocolate covered strawberries sent to their room? Something to send to their room from me with a personalized note from me. So that way they know like, hey, I'm thinking about you. I hope you have a great trip. I hope you enjoy your trip, right? So for example, I have a client that left yesterday to the Dominican Republic. I had reached out to, so yesterday was Tuesday. I reached out to the resort last week, confirming the hotel reservation, seeing if there was any complimentary amenities that could be added on. They replied back to me confirming her reservation. I personally have stayed at that resort. I stayed at that resort back in May, and at that time they were renovating. So there were certain rooms that were still a little dated. They were nice, but they were dated. So I put in a request for her to be in one of the upgraded rooms. And so they replied back to me and they were like, hi, yes, thank you. We have your reservation here. We added this to our notes, blah, blah, blah. So she texted me, and I didn't know because she didn't tell me, but she texted me a photo from her room. They upgraded her to like a pool view, like upgraded suite. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Like, so they don't tell me what it is. They didn't tell me what it is that they were going to do for her, but they, took my request and then they upgraded her and her daughter. Okay, so make sure that, any type of travel documents, updates, changes, or anything like that you're sending to your client about a week prior is typically what I do. Remind them on checking in with the airline, the procedures on that, which is typically 24 hours prior to departure, which if you put your email in as the contact email in the booking, you personally will receive an email from the airline as a reminder, like, hey, time to check in, blah, blah, blah. So typically what I do is I will then just forward that email over to my client. Um, Airport arrival time in terms of if they're traveling domestically versus international, that like 2 to 3 hour window prior to departure time, making sure they have their passports, any like visas, if they need like a notarized letter, anything like that, make sure that they just remind them of it, right? Um, just the kind of traveling can be stressful already as it is. So if they kind of have someone that's reminding them of these things, it might make their travel go a little smoother. So now that they're traveling, okay, so that's all pre-travel. So now during their travel, make sure to have some sort of communication with your client the day of travel. Okay, so ensure that everything went smoothly at the airport, they arrive safely to their destination, track their flight, send them a message as soon as they land, right? This is all different types of, this is like just examples of personalization, right? These are things that they're not going to get if they book on their own. If they book through Costco, if they book through Expedia on their own or Priceline, Travelocity, they're not going to get any of this type of service if they do that. So by you offering these little types of personalizations, it's really going to hit home with them and make them feel special, right? So I sent a message to my client yesterday wishing them a safe flight. Once they landed, she texted me actually, but I was already looking at the clock and I was actually going to text her, and she beat me to it. She's like, hey, we landed, we got our bags, we're on our way to the resort. um I personally always give my clients my personal cell phone number, whether if it's my cell phone or business number. It's all connected to my phone. Just a little bit of a tip. If you have an iPhone, you can continue to send iMessages as long as they are connected to Wi-Fi. It's not going to charge you any international fees or anything like that. But if you're unable to do that because maybe the Wi-Fi is wonky or they're just having bad service or something like that, or you just want to play it safe, you could always download WhatsApp. It's a great alternative. They have to download it too. It's just a messaging app. You can also call them there, like do like a video call and also text there as well. And it's okay to ask them how things are going as typically I'll text them the day that they arrive, then the following day just to see how their night was. And then I kind of just let them enjoy. And then I'll wait maybe like another 2 days, depending on how long they're traveling for, right? I'll wait another 2 days and say, hey, how's everything going? How are you enjoying your stay? And if they don't text you back, then they're just having fun, they're enjoying. But by you taking that initiative and reaching out to them, again, it's just making them know that you care and that you are there and available and attentive to that. Okay. Um, it's okay to see like how's the room, the food, hotel property, things like that, just briefly. You're not going to have a full-blown conversation with them during their travel, right? You want them to just enjoy and relax, but reassure them that if something's not up to their standards or something's wrong, to immediately let you know so you can troubleshoot it. Okay. That's also part of our responsibility as well. Okay. And then post-travel. So similar to pre-travel, the day before the client's departure, remind them of airline check-in procedures. You can confirm their shuttle and transfer information, make sure that they know where to report for their pickup for their airport shuttles. Again, track their flight, send them a message once they land, welcoming them back home. You can then send them a welcome home email, kind of with a summary of their travels, asking for some photos if they haven't sent you any yet, and then permission to use them on your socials and a review. Provide your links. Okay, typically for the welcome home email, you can send that. I typically wait a few days, allow them to kind of get home and settled, unpacked, and get back into their normal routine, and then I'll send that email. And typically what I do is I will text them and give them a heads up like, hey, Sally, just letting you know I sent you an email. If you could just please review that when you have a moment or something. Because, emails can just be easily misplaced. You open them, you close it, and you get distracted. So especially if you're asking them for a review, you want some photos to share for your own, for marketing purposes, then, you can remind them. Okay. So that's pretty much what I wanted to go over. I wanted to show you, um, the platform, I use TravelJoy, um, for my tracking and for my sending itineraries over, tracking when my clients are leaving, um, sending an invoice, sending a credit card authorization form, all those things. Okay. So I previously used Travify. It's also very similar to TravelJoy. I want to say it's been a year now since I've had TravelJoy. And I just preferred it over Travify. But again, it's all personal preference. Um, I can share with you guys let me just pause this really quick. Let me show you what an itinerary would look like. Well, let me make sure here. Okay. All right. So here's just an itinerary that I created for this same client. And she actually ended up going with one of these options. So on this particular quote, I provided her with two additional options. In addition to what I had already sent her, it has the flight info here. These were the same exact flights that she went on. What's really nice about this platform, and Travify does the same thing too, but it will track the flight. So if there's any delays in the flight, you'll be notified here too. You can also encourage your clients. TravelJoy in particular does have an app that they can then link this itinerary to the app, and then they'll receive like real-time notifications of their flight on there too. There's their return flight for Monday. This was option one. This is where they're staying at. So just so you see, that's kind of how I send over my info. Okay. And then option two. And then there was the pricing here down at the bottom. So see how I included deposit due at time of booking, and then final payment was due June 1st. So when we planned this, oh, there you go, 4 months ago. So, in March. So she had a little bit of time to put the deposit down and then have a little bit of time to make some payments if she wanted to, until when the final payment was due June 1st. So then let me go back here because I want to show you. So this was her invoice. Okay, so I was able to create this invoice right on TravelJoy. I created it based on the package that she selected. So she had selected option one, which was the Bahia Principe Grand Bavaro all-inclusive. So I just gave a little blurb of what this package includes. So nonstop flights, blah, 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 room, round trip, shared transfers, all taxes and fees, and then there was no travel protection included on this package. She decided to opt out on that. So see how, just to give you a little bit of a reference, she booked the junior suite superior room, which that was one of the rooms that I stayed in when I stayed at this resort in May. And it's just a regular like resort view room. So by her telling me like, hey, they upgraded us to like a higher room, we have a view of the pool. So they upgraded her, right? So I just didn't have access to see that there was an upgrade that was made. Okay. Total price. I put then the payments. So deposit 500. And then I gave her the option. I said, hey, Tara, do you want to make payments? Like we booked this in May, so you're really, or I'm sorry, March, you're not going to really have much. We can maybe do like two payments or something, but, or do you want to just do like a big lump sum? She's like, you know what? I'm waiting for my tax return. I'll just let you know when I'm ready to make the payment. So what was nice about this is I was able to send this over to her as the invoice, and then from there she could then authorize the payment whenever she was ready. So whenever her check cleared or whenever it was that she was ready financially, she could then authorize the payment, and it didn't have to be the 2155. It could just be anything to apply to the balance. Okay, and this is how it would have looked like to her. This would be like the client view. Okay, but of course it's showing us paid. um and there's that authorization and the payments that she made. I also like to use Travel Joy. Now, Travel Joy in itself, I think it's just it takes up a whole nother training, but I just wanted to show you in terms of how I track my clients travel, where they are in terms of so you see how up here it says one client departed. That one client is the client I've been talking to you about, Tara, right? So one client departed. 20 have returned. Okay. So she's currently in travel. So once she has returned, I can then trigger for a welcome home email to be sent to her. In terms of like a template that I create, I can do an email that's sent to her and I can just initially generate that for her. Under calendar, I'm able to see when when the trips are. So for example, here's her trip. She left yesterday, they come back Monday. I'm also then able to see payments when payments are due based on payment plans I have created in the platform itself. So it's going to send me an email reminder, and it's also going to send an email reminder, I believe, to the client as well, because the client also has the invoice on when that email is due. Any tasks, it'll tell me if there's anything that's overdue, which these are all completed. I just never completed them. But it will tell me, it will give me a task based on the invoice. So if I say the invoice that the payment is due December 25th, it's going to automatically generate a task for December 25th, final payment is due. And then it's going to immediately send me an email as a reminder that I need to process that payment or apply that payment, remind my client of the payment, whatever it is. What else on here? I think that's pretty much it in terms of, kind of what we were talking about in the training. But like I said, Travel Joy is a completely different training in itself, because there's so many different features in it. And like I said, it is $30, I believe. Let me see. Yes, it's $30 per month. I do have a link that I can share with you guys if you wanted to do like a free trial or if you wanted to try it out. It does give you 50% off for the first 3 months, which is a nice little deal there. So, but you decide however you want to do your tracking, do your itinerary sending. So any questions at all, guys? Let me go back up here in here. Okay, so Maria, yes, let me put in the chat the link for my form. And you guys can use that. Just use it as a guide. You can use that as a guide to create your own form. When starting as a new agent, what vendors are best to start with? So many to choose from. Chanda, that just like I said in the training, it's really going to be dependent on what it is that your client's looking for. I pretty much always start off with Vax, but I also have like 3, 4 other ones that I will go to. So Vax, Expedia, Tap, Evo Plus. It's going to be dependent. Of course, if you have a cruise, you're going to go to either Carnival, Cruising Power. So it's just going to be dependent on what your client's looking for. But I typically always start with those 3 or 4. You're welcome. Maria, I think I answered that in terms of there's no best vendor. Like I said, it's just going to be dependent what your client's looking for. If you're talking about like an all-inclusive type of package, then I'm going to go to Vax, I'm going to go to Expedia Tap, but there's not just one best vendor. You have to do your due diligence and pull them up and research. Now, okay, yeah, you're welcome. Now, like I said in the training, you may end up finding a really good deal on Vax, like your very first site that you go to. Okay, perfect. So typically what I do is if I find a really good deal, the very first search, I will still pull up another vendor, Expedia Tap, or what I like to try to do too is I was talking about this on Quote Help on Monday, is I will like to also pull up any of the wholesalers. If I'm able to get an instant commission, I will try to do that over the other, right? Of course, if it's within the client's price point and budget, I'm not ever going to present something to the client that's only going to benefit me, right? I'm going to make sure that it benefits everybody all around. So I will always try to bundle things together if I'm able to, because I do see the convenience in bundling things together. And because typically you can get a better price point that way. You can do deposits, you can make payments, right? But if I'm able to split things up and book things individually and get an instant commission and it comes out cheaper for the client, then of course I will go that route. The only downside with that, if there is a downside, is that when you're booking with the wholesalers, you cannot make payments or deposit. It has to be paid in full. So that's just a conversation to have with your client. That you have to just let them know, like, hey, this is the deal that I'm able to give you, but we have to pay in full. I can't take payments or deposits or anything like that. Tess, yes. Cruising Power does have Cruising Power has Royal Caribbean, has Celebrity. What's the other one? I always forget the other one. Oh, Silversea. Silversea, Celebrity, and Royal Caribbean is Cruising Power. Carnival is just going to have Carnival. Princess is just going to have, or One Source has Princess, and I think Holland Cruise Line. Norwegian just has Norwegian. My client is looking for all-inclusive family resort with a swim out room. What is the top 3 vendors you would suggest to research for this type of property? I mean, if it's a package, I would probably start with Vax, Expedia Tap. I'd probably just start off with those two. It's destination is also another destination is also going to be dependent as well. I would start, the very first vendors that you registered with when you first became an agent, start off there. And then what you could always do is you could go to the travel cafe, go to the list of suppliers, and then scroll through and see what are the other suppliers here that I can register with, because there's also Pleasant Holidays, there's Delta Vacations, there's American Airlines Vacations, there's Downtown Travel, right? Those are different vendors that are not listed on your primary list to register with. So, but they may potentially offer you something that is a really good deal, right? So, it really is just going to take research. But if you're registered with some things already, start with the ones that you're registered with, because registering with those other ones can take several days. So Terry, that would be like a multi-destination for Italy. You could always start in I always like Vax. I've done multi-destination on Vax. Vax is one, Pleasant Holidays is another one as well. Maria, yes. Yep, I will get this recording uploaded hopefully by this evening, and I'll share it in the Facebook group, in the Travel Knowledge Facebook group. Did anybody have any other questions? You're welcome. No other questions? Okay. Yeah, you're welcome. Great. Good. Yes, you can use Evo rewards for your clients. It is a platform to use pretty much for us, but you can extend that over to your clients. That's essentially like a wholesaler. So same thing that you would do with Evo Plus, you can then add a markup for that and receive an instant commission. Oh, good. You're welcome, Tess. In regards to the welcome home email, what I personally used, I used ChatGPT. I personalized it a little bit and we'll just say like, hey, Sally, welcome home from Aruba. I trust you had a great time or something. And then what I will do is in ChatGPT, I will prompt ChatGPT, like I'm a travel agent, um, generate or create a welcome home email to my client named Sally that just returned from Aruba. You have to really prompt ChatGPT, and then you can say, please include that if Sally could share some photos of their travels for my social media pages, and also to include an honest review of my services or working with me, blah, blah, blah. So then ChatGPT will spit out like a whole thing, and then you can customize it. Definitely don't just copy and paste from ChatGPT because sometimes ChatGPT comes off too like fake, I feel like. So it's better if you just personalize it a little bit, make it your own. If you know you're not going to ever say that word, or you know you're not going to sound like that, then don't send it, you know. Um, so that's what I would recommend for the welcome home. And then just put in your links, put in your social media link, wherever it is that you're accepting reviews. If you have reviews on Google, if you have reviews on Facebook, if you have a section on your website, if you have a personal website already with reviews, you can do that too. Can I request it through for them? Um, Maria, so what I would do is if it's an international thing like that, that has happened to me too. I have emailed I will just email the hotel. If there's a request, a hotel request for them, you don't want to send it if you are able to do the request through the actual booking portal when you're doing the booking, then submit the request. But then you also want to make sure that the hotel received that request or that the request is listed on the confirmation of booking. Because it's happened to me where I've put in a request and then when I reach out to the hotel's like, oh no, actually we didn't get that request. So I don't know where the disconnect was, but what I would do is usually I would say like 9 times out of 10 on the like full checkout screen, you should be able to put in a request in the hotel in regards to the hotel, whether if it's a late check-in, non-smoking room, uh, double beds, one bed, or you need a crib or something like that. You should be able to do that on the actual booking portal. But if not, then I would just email the hotel. Oh, thank you, Kelsey. Thank you. They're my favorite. I get compliments on them all the time. I've thought about getting like multiple ones. But yep, Maria, you can email through their website. Email through their website. They should have just like a general like contact us email. And then it should take you, it should bring you, it should be someone within like the reservations department, or it might even be just the front desk emailing you back, or like the manager emailing you back.